Welcome to Zero Idea, what I'm going to call this thing that I'm doing now, everybody. I'm Ryan Miller, and I know it's been a bit since I've been around. And if you did not hear the last Zero Hit Points show, take a listen. It'll kind of tell you what happened and what might happen in the future. This is one of those things where even though the thing has ended, my habits have not. So I kept playing games, even though I took a good long time off there for a bit. But upon coming back, kept taking notes for whatever reason, i.e. this thing. So I thought it would be fun to get on camera and podcast. You'll hear me there as well if you're still subscribed to the feed. If not, again, I don't know how long or how often stuff will go up there, but check it out. This is just going to be a first quickie thing. It's going to be rough, I'm sure. We're going to do it here all in one take. But I kind of wanted to get some of these things out. It's not going to be new news. It's going to be something that people have tackled last year. But it has to do with Apple Arcade. I subscribed during our time off before we actually discontinued Zero Hit Points. We took a good maybe month off, and it was around Christmas. We usually do that anyways towards the end of the year. But I thought it would be a good time to get into Apple Arcade. You can do a free month, and I thought I could check out plenty of things and see how it was going. You can find any number of pieces out there doing the same thing. It seems like that's mostly what people did with Apple Arcade. They subscribed, they checked it out for as long as they wanted to, and then most of them unsubscribed by the end of that trial, and they had a good picture. I mean, which is fine. It's good. I think if they were going to lead with something strong, it was a pretty good opening, but also Apple Arcade is also something much like many subscription service that evolve over time. You know, the big question even then was going to be, do they keep this up? Is it worth it to the developers? Stuff like that. And I shouldn't be posing questions like that because I don't know. I guess as to whether or not they can keep this up, I guess I might know. Because again, I subscribed when we were on that break, was around Christmas, and I thought I'll give it a month, we'll see how it goes. And I forgot to unsubscribe for a good 4 months after that. But I kept playing games, so maybe I didn't actually forget to unsubscribe. I don't know. I wanted to go through some of the games I did play. Some of them for sure you've heard by now, some of them absolutely not. But I felt like were a good representation of what that service can offer and whether or not it might be worth it. And the 3 games I think that would probably top my list. So the first thing I did dip into were kind of the big hits, the ones you heard about the most from other people that were doing the same thing. Card of Darkness. And this is where Zach Gage got together with Pendleton Ward, the Adventure Time guy, obviously. And Zach Gage, who himself has achieved such success with Pocket Run Pool, Flip-Flop Solitaire, Really Bad Chess. We've spoken about a bunch of these on the show. Ridiculous Fishing, Spell Tower. So very accomplished as far as I'm concerned. Games that stand out both in the iOS space and elsewhere. I know he has more games than just appear there. And Card of Darkness is great. It's probably one of his best for sure. And it's entertaining, and the story is cool, and the artwork is fantastic. And I enjoyed it. Why am I talking about it like this? I think what happened towards the end, especially when you kind of run the course with, or when the upgrade path has run its course, it becomes a little less interesting. I found myself picking an upgrade and kind of sticking with it. I didn't switch out all that often, and this might make more sense if I had described what the game is. Again, it's going to be rough. This is a rough first time here. I debated whether or not to do something like this solo, because obviously I'm so used to a conversation with Matt and just bouncing some things off each other. But guess what? Solo podcasts have been a thing forever, and there are a lot of excellent ones out there, and I thought maybe I could do it. So again, we'll find out. But Card of Darkness is a great game. I think I was a little less impressed with it as time went on. There was a story aspect to it that I felt wasn't completely fulfilled. Like the main character, and maybe I missed some branching paths or the true ending or something like that, but the main character is kind of this jerk kid. It's a fun take on that concept of the, the one, you're in RPGs especially, because it's kind of it's an RPG like card. It's a card game infused with RPG like elements, and the kid is just a real pompous jerk about it all, and you think this is going to lead to some sort of comeuppance, but it doesn't really. So a little unsatisfactory in that way, but again, I could have very well been missing some information there. The game itself is subtle in a lot of ways that I'm probably not giving it credit for, but worth a play. So that's Card of Darkness. The other thing, which I feel like you heard about most often, was Grindstone, and this is a Cappy game, so it's tight, it's good looking, the mechanics are solid, but kind of the same thing happened. And I guess I should preface maybe all of this with the fact that when it comes to mobile games, because I am largely playing these on iPhone, some on iPad, but mostly either way, I don't think there's a huge difference between those two, or I haven't played a game that maybe takes advantage of them as such. But with games like this, I tend to latch on, and I can point to two I'm still playing right now. One of them was the companion game to Star Wars Battlefront, not the, obviously we're talking iPhone games, so it wasn't the original Xbox or PC ones, but when it got rebooted and the sequel came out and then did loot boxes, remember all that? The first one had this companion game that came with it on your phone that it was the most non-game I could think of. I'm sure people gave no thoughts to half of the actual mechanics of that thing. It was just put enough in there, and sure enough, I could easily break the game with a few builds. I wonder if it's still out there, actually. But the other two games I think too are DC Legends, the game that killed 0 hit points, still playing it, and Dr. Mario World, which, yes, was the Dr. Mario that came out on the iPhone not too long ago. And against all odds, that's why there's a part of me that wonders how legitimate any of my thoughts in this area are, because I find a game that I play when I brush my teeth, I play before I go to bed, that puts me to sleep at night, or as me and Matt lovingly refer to them, toilet games. Those are the ones I really latch on to. And while I could still dive into them, I could dive into them and just give you all the unnecessarily deep thoughts in the world about these sometimes throwaway games. I'm not going to call them largely or 100% throwaway games, but obviously there are a lot of them out there that are meant just to waste your time, that are just meant to grab you for that reason. Even if they can't figure out quite what to do with you when they grab you, or if they can't get you to engage or spend money, they're still happy to just grab you, So for whatever reason, Card of Darkness and Grindstone didn't necessarily grab me in that way. And I want to be fair also in that games that don't grab me are also games that don't end. And I know that might seem, again, contradictory, thinking of DC Legends and Dr. Mario World, but I go through moments where, if this is, okay, let's skip ahead. Another game I played was Mini Motorways, and while this might have been the most good-looking and just completely designed of all of them, there's no end to it. There are achievements, so we run into this weird thing where achievements don't even keep me going on the thing. I don't even want to get into that. Maybe I will, though. Hey, I can do anything with this channel now, right? Could an achievement show be far behind? Probably not. It's probably just going to happen, I said to myself dejectedly. But Mini Motorways, for as good and beautiful as it is, once I found out that it didn't necessarily have an ending, it lost kind of my interest. So Card of Darkness has an ending. So I want to be fair to both Card of Darkness and Grindstone, where they do the thing I like, is they have an ending, but they do the thing I don't like, where for whatever reason they don't grab me till the very end. So I don't know. I should probably revisit those if I ever resubscribe. Spoiler alert. The other ones I got into, you probably haven't heard much about, but I don't know. I don't know to say they made a splash, but they maybe made a ripple for a few seconds. And the other thing I should mention with this is that I'm playing these mostly on phone, but with Apple Arcade, you can go anywhere the game's supported, obviously. And with some of these, they are supported through Apple TV or on the Mac. And my Mac, or I have a Mac hooked up to my TV. So I did take advantage of that and try to play some of these games essentially as if I was playing a console game. Didn't work out great for most of them, but this next one was one of those. It's called Pac-Man Party Royale, I think. Maybe I just abbreviated it there. And yes, as you might guess, it is or pretends to be a sort of battle royale type thing. And I think maybe they get away from that by substituting the word party for battle. And by doing so, essentially just create a small last man standing match mode. So you're all Pac-Man and you're all gobbling dots. And when you get a ghost, you can then eat the other players. So whoever doesn't die or get eaten by the other players. And it has a little bit of the, although I guess every Pac-Man has had this, where the more balls you eat, the more you speed up. So it's got some of that. So the stakes do kind of raise the more you go on. But for the most part, that's it. And when you're playing it through Apple TV, or actually, I shouldn't speak to Apple TV, through a Mac Mini connected to a TV, it's not quite optimized. One of the controllers I'm using for this when I play these is the Xbox 360 controller, just connected to the MacBook via Bluetooth, which is supported, and all the games appear to support and adjust to that. So it's good, except I don't know that the experience is fully there for that. We'll get into that with one of these later games. The other one that's Pac-Man adjacent, you could say, is Frogger TT, which, of course, now having looked it up, means Frogger in Toy Town? And you may be thinking, oh man, has Konami returned to making games? No, not with this in any event. So this one had by far the worst controls of any of these things, and I think Frogger's ready for a rebirth of sorts, honestly, with Crossy Road and all that. I think Frogger could, and I've always liked Frogger, actually, let's say. Maybe not so famously, I was pre-raised on Frogger. It was one of the games my mom played while I was in the womb. So I always like to think that had something to do with anything. But this game is not that. The controls are bad. The exploration's bad, which, yeah, there's kind of some exploration. It doesn't even tell you, it doesn't do a good job of telling you what exactly you're supposed to be doing the whole time. I'm having a hard time remembering, for that matter. So let's go on to the next one. Skate City is the name of that game. And I love skateboarding games, obviously. I've been and or are a skateboarder, so I have a special affinity to the Tony Hawk Pro Skater franchise. I wasn't tricked into Pro Skater 5 by any stretch of the imagination, but loved the large majority of those games and very much looking forward to, what is that? The 1 and 2 HD thing, ding, okay. Also, Skate 4 announced, which I came to like the Skate series better than Tony Hawk Pro Skater. So, Skate City is something someone like me should try. So this should be a surprise to nobody. And it is just a beautiful golden game. There are some sunsets in there, and just the color palette altogether is really pretty. I think, and I came into this one a little bit later, so maybe that's why I didn't try this on my Mac Mini hooked up to my TV, pretending to be a console type thing. Because I think the controls were what turned me off the most of this thing. It's one of those games much like, was it Ollie Ollie? Where you're on a 2D plane, so you don't have to worry about the 3D space or anything like that. And you're stringing tricks together via manuals, as you do. And it's good and solid. And I think the goals that it gives you to do are compelling. I just didn't get compelled myself. I don't know why, necessarily. I think I wanted a console experience out of that game is what I would have gone for more. I think, given what I'm about to tell you about these other games, I think I was scared to try that. So who knows? If you've got it, if you got the thing, if you have a Mac Mini and or an Apple TV, I'm curious how that thing runs there. I know it's supported there, so let me know. Skate City. The others, I'm going to run through just real quick. Rayman Mini. It's another Rayman iOS game. There's a few out there, and they are all worth playing for a few reasons. One, the music. They use, if not wholesale, the tracks from Rayman Legends, and there was a few on the 360. There was a sequel that I heard ratcheted up the difficulty that I did not need. So the music in those games is fantastic. It's so fun. And these iOS games are also super fun, like worth playing, but this is another one of those. And I think I had those, so I wasn't really looking for another one of those, but it's in there. And that's kind of maybe the sub tagline of Apple Arcade. It's in there. Some of these games you feel like, I mean, it's got whatever, hundreds, it's got 1,000 games in there. I don't know. Obviously some of them are going to be, I don't know if check marks is a good term, but they're just there to kind of cross a thing off the list, or they're easy to have on there, or I don't know. There's a lot of games on there. They're not all good. Hot takes. So another one that you can take or leave is Crossy Castle. It's Crossy Road, except now it's a platformer. My daughter super loves it. It probably earns the medal for most times that it has been requested and shut down, because I found it a bit empty. Regardless, it's fun. I didn't even get because Crossy Road, me and Matt got into. That's another show you can check out. In fact, I did a Crossy Road video. But that was one that we got into very much the leaderboard type aspect, or even just one-upping each other. And this has that. And maybe if I had somebody to, although I could have competed with my daughter in that way, she would have soundly beat me. But let's just say I cut out 4 minutes of me ho-humming to basically come to the conclusion that there's not much there. And I thought our time could have been spent better elsewhere. I'm a dad. So this next game was probably the one I was waiting for the most. In fact, I was waiting for it to come out on the Switch before anywhere. I think it could not have been 2018. It must have been 2019. It was supposed to come out on the Switch 2019 and didn't. I don't know if it still has, but I was waiting because I wanted, and this sounds like a crazy thing to say, I wanted Switch controls on this game. And in a way, I'm still waiting, even though I went ahead and downloaded it on my Mac Mini to play on my TV with my Xbox 360 controller hooked up via Bluetooth to that thing, to What the Golf. So if you haven't looked at this thing at all, I think we might have spoken about it at PAX, or where we first saw it. It was at 2 PAXs in a row, I want to say. I don't know. But it delivers on everything you would hope it to deliver on, in that it's a very funny take on golf and golf video games, because there's a million. Y'all know the controls. It's just it's ripe for satire. Satire? I don't know if this is satire. It's probably more of a gag game than anything. But I think it does transcend in that it probably has more in common with WarioWare than any other game, which, if you haven't played a WarioWare, and I've only played one, I think it was the one for the Wii. Yes, that was the one. Smooth Moves? Could have been. But amazing fun. But all these tiny little micro games where the rules are kind of changed, so you're both having to try and figure out the rules at the drop of a hat, and then trying to excel at them within a very short amount of time. So once I figured out that might have been, and I guess I don't know if this is exactly what they were going for. Once I figured that out, it was even more appreciable and is definitely worth playing. The controls hurt. And it goes a bit long, actually, unfortunately, because if it had been the right length, I think that might have been one of my top games on this thing. The longer it goes, the less you laugh, and hopefully I didn't miss out on too many jokes or a really grand payoff, because just slowly it became not the thing we wanted to play at the end of the day, which is when we're typically doing this. I will probably come back to it when it does finally come out on Switch. It might even already be out on Switch. I don't know. But What the Golf. We are down to the last 3, and I can't believe I went this long even. Cricket Through the Ages. Another WarioWare-like, maybe. Actually, no. You know what this one's like? This one's like Frog Fractions. Did you ever play Frog Fractions? Frog Fractions gave me the biggest laugh and longest laugh of any video game I've ever played. If you have not played Frog Fractions, and I know you have to go through some stuff to get the joke at the end, And if that joke doesn't land, boy, you've wasted some time. But if it does, man, Cricket Through the Ages is a lot of the same kind of nonsense, non sequitur type stuff that when you sit down and explain to a camera sensically, sounds really stupid. But it starts off telling you that this is a history lesson on cricket, and it becomes so much more, both gameplay wise and aesthetically, and just Cricket Through the Ages. Last two, Assemble, couldn't be more unlike Cricket Through the Ages. And honestly, I haven't heard anything about this game from anywhere else. But Assemble is this game that has beautiful music, a beautiful story, and beautiful gameplay, graphics, whatever, all just simplified. The story is you play this girl who likes to fix things, and she's kind of estranged from her sister. And it's a story of them coming back together, of that relationship being fixed. And meanwhile, you are meeting different people in the town that are giving you things to fix. You're fixing their things. The gameplay is you're taking things apart, kind of like if you ever played The Room, any of the Room games. It's not a puzzle game, but you're manipulating objects very much in that same way. And you're replacing broken parts. Sometimes you're gluing some stuff, so there's some cool analog fixing going on there. Record players, cameras, stuff like that. It's really, really fun and beautiful and simple, but the story it tells, I think, is so much grander than any of its parts, greater than some of its parts, that whole thing. Check it out, Assemble, really. My daughter also loved it. My wife didn't have a chance to look at it. It's kind of short, but worth it. I liked that. Top of the list. We'll see. The last one was also the last game I played on that service before finally canceling. And I wanted to love it so much more than I did. I think it is exactly what I've been waiting for in so many ways, because let me tell you about this game called Peggle that EA, I think, PopCap, either one, doesn't seem terribly interested in doing anything with. And I loved Peggle 2. Played me some Peggle 2. Continue to play me some Peggle 2. And that's kind of been it since. I know I'm probably glossing over a bunch of indie similar titles that maybe, I guess I should look it up. Maybe there haven't been. Maybe the dearth is real. But here, Roundguard is actually a rogue-like and or light. I've never gone to the trouble to figure out the difference between those two terms. And it has the same problem that a lot of those games have for me. In fact, in my opinion, when games like these are poorly designed, it comes down to two things. Either the progression is too scant. If I feel like I'm not, because the whole thing, okay, if you don't know what type of games I'm talking about, they're games where they're kind of run-based, and within completing a run, you will sometimes level up or maintain items in a way that helps you with your next run, and so on until you're finally able to get to the final boss type thing. I've played very few of these actually, and FTL is probably at the top of my list for them. But Solitarica, that was a good one too. Check that one out. iOS. Roundguard has the problem that a lot of roguelikes that aren't tightly designed have, I think, is that it comes to a point that the runs take longer than I'm willing to invest in. And this was that. Like, you'll get some great Peggle play out of it. Like, if you're hurting for a Peggle game, this is it. Like, definitely check it out, because it's also done meaningful advancements to the genre, I don't know, the game type, where they're introducing RPG elements again, probably. So there are fun things to be had there. I think there are some great ideas, but when everything's clicking and you're having a great run, it's like, it felt like it to me, like 30 minutes. And I can sit down and play Peggle for 30 minutes, but it didn't have any meaningful progression to me, it seemed, or the progression was taking too long. I don't know, but it got to the point where to just sit down and play a game, and I never even got to the end, so I don't know, it just seemed like it was taking too long to get there. If they had set it up as just a normal Peggle game where I'm going through levels and completing them and doing objectives, stuff like that, would have been better. But it seemed like maybe they wanted to have it both ways, and it kind of just, for as good as a game as it feels to play, it just went on a little too long. So I'm going to call it, if you need just top 3 recommendations for Apple Arcade, I would say Assemble, Cricket Through the Ages, in no particular order, Card of Darkness still. Honorable mention to What the Golf. We'll see. We'll come back to that. We'll when I do a Switch show, that'll be on there and see if we can redeem it a little bit. Thanks for hanging out. I don't know how regular this is going to be, but I'm glad to get some of this off my chest. That's the type of person I am. If you want to get any of it off your chest, you can still find me at zerohitpoints.com. And heck, I don't care. Email me, Ryan, RYAN, at zerohitpoints.com. I'm also on Facebook and or Twitter. You can find me at TheBeardII, or find me on Xbox, more than likely. Although I got a few PS4 games staring me in the face. We'll see. Next show will be something different. See you then.